agents on front line. So, I mean, we're in a very fast-paced, changing, challenging climate. And I think you said you kind of got to go. You got to learn this stuff. You've got to be interested in improving what you do.
So look, there's obviously two questions. There's the social media and then there's the AI. And I'll come back to AI again in a second. And if you look at social media, I was only talking about this the other day. I was filming at Digital Spark Studio with Ben and his team, and there was a load of people there that have been in the industry for 25 plus years. And we were talking about the olden days when we had black and white newspaper adverts. We didn't have digital cameras. We had a wooden meter rule for measuring properties.
I remember that. I remember that.
And if you'd have pulled that John Handford to the side and said, right, John, this is your career moving forward, a few years from now, it's going to be a requirement for you to be on camera.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to talk and present, and you're going to have to do that day in, day out as the very fabric of your job. I'd have said, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
I'm out of here. I'll go back to knocking in nails for a living because that's my safe space. And it's amazing how much the industry is involved in such a short space of time that, almost doing Jerry Bruckheimer level productions for properties, and you're doing multiple assets per property that you put on the market. And it's a necessary evil.
Yeah.
And I'll say this will put a smile on your face, because again, it was Ben that mentioned this in one of our training sessions a couple of years ago. He said our local rag, it used to cost £500 a page to put a property advert in. And there was instances where you'd have 2, 3, 4 pages, you'd be spending £2,000. He said, now I can reach 100,000 people with one video based upon the quality of the content that I put together, and it doesn't cost me anything other than a little bit of production. So I'll reach a far bigger audience, much more relevant. It can then attract me followers, but it requires effort rather than the investment in order to be able to produce that quality content. And, it's absolutely right, but there are agents still out there relying upon newspaper adverts in the local rags because that's all that they've ever done. So if you don't evolve, you won't continue to get what you've always got. You'll cease to exist.
Yeah,
because you'll just become irrelevant.
It's gone that fast, hasn't it?
And you've got to be so up to speed with it in terms of what the future looks like. And you've got to be out there constantly looking for new ways. And it's why you've got to love what you do. You've got to be doing it in the evenings and weekends because you haven't got time in the day job. And then coming back to AI, there was a great thing that I heard a year ago where somebody said, look, you won't lose your job to AI, but you're in danger of losing your job to somebody that will use AI better than you.
Yeah.
And there are so many tools out there now. And it is important that you harness them because it's going to make you more efficient with what you do and reach more people and do it in a more expeditious fashion than you could just work in the traditional way.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer. And I think it can feel quite overwhelming because of the amount of things that are being fired at business owners, agents, day-to-day, prop tech. I mean, everyone's got a solution for maybe a challenge that's not really there sometimes, So I think it's definitely harnessing something that leverages you in this industry. So, good AI should get you in more conversations, for argument.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, look, we've there's a smile on our face as well, going back 25 years. Do you remember when you used to be able to go to an appraisal at 10 o'clock on a Monday morning and you'd have it on the market by the afternoon?
Oh, my God.
And now there are
you'd even have
things.
The camera with you. You'd be like, right, let me. One of my closing tactics, Bertie, was get the old digital. When you got a digital camera, it was like you'd made it, right? Because you used to have to get them developed, Bertie. Now you won't know what that means, do you? And then you go and get the photos back 3 or 4 days later, and some have been blown or whatever the bloody word was.
Or you got the vendor in the window upstairs looking through.
Cat in the, But you got your digital camera. You go right, Jonathan. Look, have a look. Do you want that photo online? And they'll go, oh yeah. Or do you want that photo in the paper? It's like, well, they've already given me the instruction now. See, so the digital camera was like a big deal. But then you'd have a measuring the ruler, the meter rule, which you'd unfold to measure the room. And you're looking over it going, I think that's about right. And it was just unbelievable, wasn't it? Like the lack of, I suppose, technology, but Oh,
But you didn't have the same blockers though, did you? Because if you think, like I said,
You'd be on the
could do
market in 2 hours.
Appraisal on a Monday, 10
Yeah.
o'clock, on by the afternoon. Now you've got the legislative blockers.
Yeah, that's
and then,
massive.
And then you've got the marketing. So the job is becoming harder. You know, you've got EPCs, KYC, you've got compliance, all of those bits. You know, as before you'd have a marketing agreement, a mandate, which has obviously been a requirement since 79, but you could do that there and then on the property. Now there's so many things that you have to do and you have to get right to make sure that you don't fall short of the law. So that in its own right, the legislative stuff is a challenge and an obstacle.
Yeah.
But then you think, oh God, now I've got to do all this extra marketing on top. Can I not just put it on and call a few people? Well, no, you need the EPC, you need the photographs, you need the floor plan.
That's so true.
And you know, you talked about sometimes it can be 12 months to, you know, get a property across the line in the upper quartile. It can take you a month to get it on the market.
Yeah.
You know, by the time
you're getting everything back.
And managing a vendor's expectations where they say, right, we want it on tomorrow. And you say, no, we need to hold off for all of these reasons. We've got to get it right. We only get one chance to launch to market.
Yeah.
You know, and we want to give you the best possible chance of selling. So I think the job has become harder because of a lot of things, and then easier because of a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it's
choosing the right things, isn't it? Ultimately. Some of it, like you said, with the compliance stuff. But I suppose I don't know, this just occurred to me while I was talking, that some of these things that may feel a little bit of an inconvenience might be the very thing that helps us to professionalize the elements where maybe we can start to move towards. And I know Ian Preston's been talking a lot about flexi fees, whereby, you know, the client will get an opportunity to decide how much they pay up front and then how much comes off the end and that kind of stuff. I think that because of the amount now that the clients are being asked for at the start, including the amount of investment the agents are making in production, you just mentioned like the types of videos that people are putting together, they're off the charts. It's like a feature film, isn't it, of high quality content. But you could be spending a couple of grand really getting a house to market, and it's a risk.
It's a risk, but it's a necessity. It's a necessity. So I'll give you an example. We've just sold a place in South London for 20 million.
Nice.
Buyer come from TikTok.
Wow.
So I mean, but the level of production that went into capturing that property, I think the upfront fee was in the realms of £5,500 just for the video productions. But you're not just posting it to a property portal. You're posting it to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, because your buyer could come from any one of those sources, and it's fishing with a net rather than a line. And actually, a property of that ilk, it's essential. But trying to convince a seller of that when they've got other agents that say, "Oh, don't worry about that. We don't need that," and it's fine. We can operate without it, but it's like asking me to do my job with one hand tied behind my back. It's like a carpenter working without power tools. Well, the tools are there, but you've got to invest in them and you've got to use them, and you'll get the job done quicker and be more efficient and do a better job.
So 100%.